Hello and welcome to Inside Germany. My guest today wrote her doctorate on weapons control and helped to set up the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW, back in the 1990s. This organisation recently received the Nobel Peace Prize. Mitslal Kifleyesus Matschie is originally from Ethiopia and now lives in Jena in the German state of Thüringen. She's a political scientist, a social entrepreneur, and she's also, incidentally, the mother of 2 children. Welcome to the show. Let's start with family. You've got 2 children, but you come from a much bigger family. I think you've got 9 brothers and sisters. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yes, I do have 2 kids, Felix and Josephine. Felix is 13 and Josie is 11 years old girl. And I come from 10 family whereby I'm number 8 in the numbers.
We have a picture you sent us. This is
Yes.
The whole family couldn't fit in, obviously.
No, would not fit in. This is the part of the family which we are born from my mother, where when we grew up, we understood that we come from different 3 mothers. But these are my brothers, starting my older brother, then the other one, my sister and me and my brother.
Are you second from left then?
Yes.
Yeah.
A little girl.
Yeah.
And there is another one which is missing here. It's an artist brother of mine.
Yeah. And I want to straight away show another picture. This is so cute.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
This is a beautiful picture. Wow.
And I believe there's a story behind this because I think you wrote, when you sent us this picture, you wrote, chosen to rule.
Yes, you know, in Ethiopia, when you are born, there is a traditional healer who comes and sees your spiritual, every capacity. And I was my brother chosen to become a ruler, a leader of the country. So I had to be raised. It was told the man looks to your energy and says, if you don't take care of them, myself and my brother, then their energy will be self-destructive. So they have a special energy and they have to be raised, especially to rule. So I was raised and I believe it every time that I'm a leader.
I wondered, when were you told that yourself? I mean, your parents were told that, but
yes,
were you sort of
it.
given the impression from your parents quite early on that...
Yes, yes. For example, when there was the war, we had to be divided, the children. And I was those one who had to go to save myself because I'm going to rule. So you get divided. We were in the wartime, so they divided us, my brothers and sisters. Some of us has to go to the countryside in order to be saved. My father stayed with my brothers, with some of my brothers, in the war zone. And I was only 7 years old. And so you hear it every time, the way they talk to you, certain things, for example, like a girl, you're not forced to do a lot of girls' thing. You should do girls' thing, but plus you should be in all the negotiations. So my grandfather was a healer. I had to be in his discussions and under his feet. My father, when he went in all the cabinet meetings, I had to go. As I was chosen to rule, I was the one who used to make coffee ceremonies when the cabinet was sitting. So
You're talking about the cabinet. What did your father do?
My father is still alive, so he lives in Canada. He's a judge. So he was, as a judge, he was often in the emperor time, and the kings, then in Mengistu time, then in Meles time, and all these regimes, he was part of it.
We should actually just, I don't want to stop you talking, but we should show a map of where you come from. That's,
okay.
Am I pronouncing it right? Agodat?
Agodat, yes.
Agodat.
Where I was born.
Yeah, and you talked about growing up in the war, because this was it Eritrea then, or was it...
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. That is the place where Eritrea today is. So the fight, the day I was born, that's why I'm called Mitslal, is the day I was born. My mother couldn't go out of the house to give me birth in the hospital because they were fighting over our house. So bad, because nobody died in the family in this war day, they called me a protection. And that's why it's called Mitslal, means somebody like an umbrella which protects you from the other side. And
you were treated as a special child chosen to rule, and I mean, pretty special at the age of 17, you left Ethiopia and went to Brussels. How did that come about?
Oh, this is actually a very interesting time because I wanted to go to Brussels. Then you need, at that time, it was a communist regime in Ethiopia, you needed a special permission to go. So I had to ask a special permission. And I remember my interview with the Vice Minister of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And my father asked me, how did he give you a permission to go out? And I say, well, he did an interview. And he asked me what was the interview. And in the interview, the Vice Minister asked, why do you want to go? And I said, well, if the Roman empires were able to feed their people, give them water, clean water, 2,000 years ago, if the Europeans, they say they have stopped the war, I go and learn how they did it so that when I come back, I would do it. And then he says, so when you come back, what would you be? Of course, the president of the country. What do you expect? Because that was the reason I have to go to learn. And he says, how many years do you need? And I say, 7 years. So he gave me a special permission to go out of Ethiopia 7 years. And then I came back home and my father asked, how did you get that special permission? I told him this. He said, oh, the opposition has to go out before they are a danger to the country. That's why he gave you. So I came to Belgium and I studied, that's why I studied military science and European studies, because I wanted to learn how to stop the war and how to feed Ethiopians. And that's what I did, and that's what I do still.
And you started, I think there even, started working for the UN.
Yes.
In some capacity. Yeah.
I was 23. I was very young when I went to the UN. I went because I wanted to do my master's. And then when I went there, there were only 32 people working for the preparatory organization, and none of the Africans were participating, except 1 or 2 countries. The Nordic country for sure, because they had an interest. And then I started to bring all the African countries together and bring them to ratify. And I say, the reason you have to ratify this is the Article 11, which is for the peaceful use of chemistry.
I want to talk a bit more in detail about that later, but first of all, I want to find, because we've got to move to Germany. What brought you to Germany?
Love. What brought me
to... a lot of us.
First, I came to Germany because I was asked to lecture in Jena University. So I came and I'm a small Ethiopian girl lecturing about the United Nations. And at that time, it was just after the DDR. So people were impressed about the European Union and they didn't know how to influence it. What does it mean, UN? And I am a realpolitik person. So I told them, actually, there is institutions, they have their own rules and regulations, and the member states influence them. If you want to influence nations, collective nations, go to the national politics. So I explained, they were happy. Then they invited me the year after to come again to lecture. And this time they invited my future husband, Christoph, and he came with a motorbike, with a leather jacket, to confront me in the political science.
And he was a politician?
He was a member of Parliament.
On a motorbike?
Yes.
With a leather jacket. We should just sort of say.
And I was impressed because I'm used at that time were limousines with a Bosch outfit of man, and here comes a simple honors a politician. And then he invited me to walk in the forest like a little girl. And I was impressed. And then I decided to come back and then got children and all this.
Well, this is a very good cue because you talk about walking in the forest in Thüringen. Thüringen is a lovely part of Germany. It's actually sometimes called the green heart of the country, illustrated here by a visit to the Hainich National Park.
Here in the middle of Germany, the wooded hills of the Hainich region extend over an area of 160 square kilometres. High up in the trees, the canopy walkway offers a unique perspective on the broadleaf forest. More than 360,000 visitors come to the Hainich National Park each year. When woods in Central Europe are left to their own devices, they usually turn into beech forests. The beech trees compete successfully for the sunlight that ensures their growth.
Imagine that it's foggy, which it sometimes is. And when you look at the forest structure in the background, you can imagine it as a typical German forest, where all those fairy tales originated.
The woods are also magical in the springtime when wild garlic and early flowering plants and trees adorn the forest floor, or in the autumn with its bright foliage. In 2011, the forest was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. A big attraction in the national park are the wildcats. Around 30 of them live in Hainich. Visitors won't usually encounter the shy animals in the wild, but they can see them in the wildcat village in Hütterode. Environmentalists have come up with an ingenious means to encourage wildcats to settle in forests throughout Germany. They've built protected corridors connecting the wooded areas.
Germany's fragmented landscape gives the animals little chance of surviving long term. This project with the corridors is trying to enable these wild animals a chance to move around again in Germany.
The Hainich National Park has all the conditions that can make it a paradise for wildcats, as the forest is growing bigger every day.
My guest is Mitslal Kifleyesus Matschie, who's married to a German politician who took you for a walk. I hope he didn't take you for a walk with the wild cats.
No, not with the wild cats. But it is really true. Thüringen is very green and environmental. And the one which we saw right now is a biosphere reserve, where I'm also actively a biosphere reserve in Ethiopia, which I do. But with my husband, I have to say, no matter the situation of today, that he was the one who introduced me to all these environmental aspects and, you know, walking in the forest and when the leaves go. And it's a beautiful place, Thüringen, to live, especially if you can canoeing, you know, if you canoe, and then you can go on Desala and you see all these beautiful places, especially in the summer.
Yeah.
It's a nice vacation place.
But, I mean, Thüringen's not Berlin, it's not Hamburg, it's not Munich. People out there most probably don't know too much about it. But was it, when you went to live there and settle there, must have been a culture shock of some sort?
Yes, it is. It does, because the first time I came in Jena, it was under construction because it was moving from DDR to...
From the East German times,
yes,
yeah.
And so that is one. Secondly, people look at you for sure because we're not a lot of black people, and we're not a lot of black people walking straightward and doing, teaching there in the university, and Jena is a very cocoon because you have a university, research institutions, you have companies which are international companies, so the town itself is cocoon.
Carl Zeiss, are they still there?
Yes, Carl Zeiss is one of the international companies. You know, optics
Carl
is
Zeiss
there.
Jena, of course,
yes.
Of course.
Everywhere you go, when you see optics, you say, this is home.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And but, you know, when you go to the outside, it is for the people, they have not seen you. There has been a case. Once I was in, you know, you have this parade, when you have ones where the countryside, they go out and like carnival make.
Yeah,
they do have
carnival.
this. Yes, the village.
A parade.
Yes,
parade,
the village ones.
Yeah.
And I remember a man came and said, I have never touched a black woman. And can I give you a kiss? What would you say? And I said, yes, you can just give me a kiss. So you have this kind of, and it depends how, some of them, they are curious, but they cannot look at you very long, and some of them, they would look at you very long. It depends how they express it. But they are, when you go to Thüringen Wald, you are not only because you are black, you are a foreigner. Even if you come from Berlin, you are a foreigner.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of exposure to other people.
I want to quote from an article about you in the African Times. And the headline was, I'm a proud German. So with this all in mind, do you feel more German than Ethiopian then?
I don't know. But actually, I feel, I every time say I'm the best German you can imagine.
What do you mean?
Yes, I'm a very proud German because to be a German, when I was a child, my father used to say every time, if you want a civilization, go to the humanism, romanticism of Germany, precision. So I came to Germany, because of love. But I didn't only marry my husband, I married Germany, which means Germany, the best thing Germans can give you, or Germany can give you, is an instrument of organization. That the Germans often, unfortunately, they stay being the instrument of organization. But if you are a foreigner and you have that instrument of organization and that spirit, that energy of being an African, then you are the most best, because there is not a best place, from my view, when you want to live, to raise your children, than where I live.
But you had this impression, or an impression of Germany as a child. I hadn't asked you that. Your father was telling you this is the place to go to.
Yes, I mean, my father was impressed of civilization. He's an Oxford. So he is very much civilization-oriented father. So, and for him, for us, when you, in Ethiopia or in other places, if you want to say something is precise, you say, this is German. Okay, it's made like German. It's made in Germany. Yeah. So it's a precision. So for the responsibilities I had to go through. I mean, as I'm raised to lead, as I'm raised to deal with the chaos, as I'm raised to make development and bring peace, you need an instrument. And this instrument is one of the best, is the German. To be organized, to be able, I know it from my kids. If you have a problem and you talk to them, they say, okay, Mama, we sit down. What is the problem? How do we deal about it? What are the instruments? We say, chaka, 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 it's fact.
So are they they're more German?
Yes, unfortunately. But when
Why unfortunately?
When you are, to be a German, if you allow yourself, because sometimes as a pure German, you're not allowed to enjoy your being German. But if you allow yourself to be the best German, I hope they will allow themselves like that, then you are a good German.
Well, can't your kids have that? They have the possibility, surely, to be a kind of free. What you're saying is they have the possibility to be German on the positive side and also to have a freedom.
Yes, but this also will depend on the school. In the school, when my son was in a kindergarten, I was very, very upset because he was not allowed to sit down in he was forced to sit down in the toilet, and the German rules and regulations. So I was irritated. So there are things which you learn them in the school to have rules and regulations, and that might kill the spirit of being free. Even though you are free, you need a spirit on that.
Yeah. We're talking about your kids. I'm looking here for a picture. Here's another picture who's got one of your children here.
This is my daughter, Josephina. Yeah. It's Josie. And this is the place where she is baptized. And the woman beside her is the lady who is her baptizing mother from Lalibela. So my kids actually are baptized in the most traditional. I'm very traditionalist. I love rituals. Traditional Ethiopia, the church, Lalibela and St. George. And that is her godmother.
I was going to say, is it a baptism mother's bit like a godmother?
Yes.
And I think we have the two of them. It's the only picture we've got of the two of them.
Yes, because this is my son. Now he is big, huge boy. And this is the Ethiopian traditional water therapy, where the priests... in Ethiopia, we have a lot of different therapies. One of them is water, the dance, which everyone in Europe knows it, which is trance, comes from Ethiopia.
Oh, really?
Yes, trance comes from Ethiopia. So this is water therapy, and I'm doing a lot with traditional healers, and this is to wake up your spirit. When you are sick, if you have a psychological sickness, you go to your priest, and the priest gets this water, clean water, should I do it? And then spray you 3 times, and then you wake up. So the flow of your energy within your body wakes up. And
I believe that was in Lalibela, is in a very holy city?
Lalibela is a very, very holy city. It's one of the number 8, I think, places in the world to see, where the church is made under the ground with 1 molinitous stone. So it's a very holy place. Ethiopians, we believe we have also the cross, part of the cross of Jesus Christ. And it's a very important, but it is alive. Ethiopia, when you go to Lalibela to see it, you have to experience it because it's not a museum, it is alive.
Returning to Germany, or actually returning to another quote, and it refers to what you've already talked about in a way. As a foreigner, you said, you live much better than a German in Germany.
Yes, and you indeed. I think you know it yourself, maybe. Because, you see, when you are a foreigner in Germany, people are very welcoming. It is, okay, their body language might not be, you might misinterpret it, but in general, yeah. Even if you go to the countryside where they have never met a foreigner, they are welcoming, because by the historical. But the only thing, if you are a foreigner, and if you, the best way to keep yourself living in Germany better is to be every time a foreigner and to deal with this question, how long are you there? They ask you, how long would you stay? When are you going back? They do every time ask. That can orientate you. The other way is, you know, you have the best infrastructure. The people are friendly because they are curious. Germans, like other Europeans, but Germans specifically because they spend a lot of time in reading. You know, this is a place where books are the most sold. So they read a lot. So they are very curious. They live from your stories. Germans, as they do travel a lot. You know, there is no nation who travels like the Germans because they are curious. Yeah. And when you come as a foreigner, if you tell them a story, in a way you help them also their personal development, so they're really respectful. But you need to have stories. And being a foreigner, you have a lot of stories. So, and they love that. So the question is that to find the bridge on how to keep between these two. Being a foreigner, but still living. And I consider myself, I love living. And even if you come and you go to a restaurant and you ask something and you ask her to explain, you just came in from Ethiopia, she would be even serving you more than what you need. Just because you're a foreigner.
So is Germany very multicultural?
Well, yeah.
Or is it just this curiosity?
That's the moment you want to stay, this is not only a German problem. It is a problem of different nations. Yeah. It's the moment you want to stay, it's the moment you share the capital or you share the resources. Then you are looked differently. Then some of them who are in a difficult situations will look at you. But if you are here only to enjoy and as a tourist and this, and you laugh and you go, no. But if you stay, being happy and taking the resources where they are not happy, then a problem starts. So it's better to be a foreigner and living in Germany.
Okay. I want to quickly move on because we want to show something about it. I mentioned at the beginning you're involved with setting up of the Organisation for the Banning of Chemical Weapons back in the 1990s. Are you still involved with the work?
Yes.
Yeah?
Because when I started, actually my life still, when I was 17, I wanted to become a president. I went to study and all this is still the same.
You can still be president?
Yes.
Yeah.
But not yet. Not yet.
Oh.
I'm not wise enough to become a president of Ethiopia now because a country like Ethiopia needs a very wise person because it is more challenging to govern a country like Ethiopia than a country like Germany. Germany is much more easy. Things are already done. So when I went to the organization, which because Ethiopia was attacked by chemical weapons in the Second World War, so we lost the war with Italy because of that. So it is in the pride of Ethiopians.
Yeah, sure.
So I went to this organization to be part of the banning of the chemical weapons. But the main reason which made me help other countries to ratify is Article 11, where there is the peaceful use of chemicals.
We'll come to that. Let's see the piece now. I'll tell you why. We'll come to that because that gets quite complicated, but it also mixes with something else you do. Let's have a look at the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW. Possibly not very well known until earlier this year when it was the unexpected winner of one of the world's most distinguished prizes. My guest is Mitslal Kifleyesus Matschie, who was involved in setting up the OPCW. You must feel very proud that it's... I mean, was it a surprise for you?
Well, it was a great surprise, because I don't know why I didn't even cross to my mind that we could get a prize. But what when the organization was made, I mean, I was number 32 when the organization was called a Preparatory Commission for the Prohibition of CWC. And it was necessary at that time to ratify the CWC, not only to sign it, but it came when the Cold War was over, when arms control and disarmament treaties were not so important because the threat was not so obvious at that time.
In the 1990s, yeah,
yes.
Sure.
And then 1993 was signed, and we got it into force in 1997. And I finished my job in 1998 because I brought most of the African countries, Latin American and East European. I was responsible in Brussels. I was very, very young when I joined the organization, 23.
Wow.
And I used to remember when we were going like Cote d'Ivoire and other countries, people expected from my papers a very huge woman, but I was so slim at that time. So I had to ratify. I was naive. I was convinced that it was possible. But it's important in the international politics and in anything you do to have certain naivety. And this naive has brought me 32 countries to convince them they have to do it. And that's what I did.
And on naivety, do you think the OPCW can do it? Do you think it can one day close because there are no chemical weapons left in the world?
I hope so. We would reach at that stage. In general, international organizations have difficulties to close themselves, but to minimize their activities, they would reach. 80% of the chemical weapons are destroyed, so which means we have only 20% left. From 1997 until now, within 20 years of, not even 20 years of activity, the destruction is greatly made. Now, the implementation of the treaties are not only destruction of the chemical weapons, but ensuring there is not going to be any chemical weapons in the future developed. Do we need the destruction people for that? Maybe the inspection department will be less, but they would not close totally, because human relationship and science and human relationship is every time a very careful issue. One has to look at it.
Yeah.
So we cannot expect the world it will be everybody for good purposes. I don't think so.
And you most probably will stay OPCW because it has to marshal that it doesn't happen again. Now, you've mentioned it twice and I've put you off because I wanted to bring it up now to relate it to the next subject. You implemented Article 11. This, if I'm right, has something to do with, of course, you ban chemical weapons, then there are certain chemicals that are banned that might be useful in agriculture.
Yes.
And this is a problem you overcame in Ethiopia.
Well, when Ethiopia ratified, like any other African countries, when they ratify, normally the parliament asks us, why do we have to ratify? Why do we let a challenge inspection? Because it's intrusive. And I was saying that if you don't, because then you don't have your industry developed. So it has got a stick and a carrot relationship.
Yeah.
And there are it's called schedule chemicals, Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3 chemicals. They have a dual-use technology implication, which means in Schedule 1, the only way you can use those schedules is for highly health issues. But in Schedule 2 are chemicals which you use them in pesticides and other industries. And Schedule 3s are a combination of chemicals in which you might use them also for weapons.
Oh, I see. So there are these different schedules.
Yes, it's classified. And the three classification of the chemicals, the way you produce them is the way routine and challenge inspection is made. But most of the developing countries, they don't produce a Schedule 1, they don't produce a Schedule 2, maybe Schedule 3, maybe. But they use Schedule 2 and Schedule 3. So the transaction between the country or the company which is using it and the country which is receiving is called a declaration of companies. And this declaration comes, for example, in Schedule 3, there are chemicals which you use them in the peaceful application. For example, if you want to make a jam, you need a pectin. And to make a pectin is made from a liquid apple pectin to a powder pectin. And in the process of moving from liquid to powder, the machine needs certain chemicals. And these chemicals, would the company receive it? So if I want to buy a pectin in Ethiopia, I have to give an end-user certificate which says my relationship with this company is only for peaceful purposes.
And you've a lot of experience with this, I know, because we come to your company in Ethiopia, Ethiopian, which I think you have 1,100 farmers working with you, or you're working with them, creating jam, mostly?
Well, I promised it, and then as promised, I did this job, then I got married, children. And then when I went back to Ethiopia after 8 years, and I said, what did you do with all these treaties? And so there was nothing. So I said, I'm going to implement it the simplest way, which is conservation, to conserve the jams. You know, in Ethiopia, 80% of the mangoes, they get spoiled because nobody could make them a jam or juice and conserve them. So what I done...
Oh, they rot?
Yes, they get rotten, yes.
Ah.
It's not big. Mainly... Sometimes, poverty and hunger is a question of transportation, sometimes. Yes. So you have in Ethiopia 500 kilometers in the other western side, in Gambela areas and Asosa areas, where the fruits get rotten. And then you have in the eastern side of Ethiopia, where people have no access because there is no water. So what I did is I went in all part of Ethiopia. I have around 11,000 farmers with whom I work, and we process the post-harvesting, which is normally becomes a garbage bin, which is a biomass. We process it to jam, juice, jelly, and I create companies with them. I'm an entrepreneur.
And is it actually, is it a little like the Mittelstand, the sort of small businesses in Germany? You've got lots of little businesses that they're really looking after themselves?
Yes. Normally it is the farmers, the 11,000 farmers are organized as cooperatives. And then their children create a startup company, a small company with us, with Ecopia, near the farm, and they process it. And if you see our products, you wouldn't believe it. We create a high, valuable, high quality, a German quality, because it's made by German senior experts, OMAS.
And is it imported to Germany then?
I am against export of food.
Oh, so, it's just for inside?
In Ethiopia and in the area. We are asked, if you get our jam, you find them in Djibouti, in South Sudan, and sometimes in Germany also. They cost €5. And I have a big market in Ethiopia, so I don't need to export. Yeah. If you want to export, it's better to export cosmetics and herbal medicine rather than food. It's also, we are ecological company. It's against our principles to export food.
Okay. Let's have a look. My guest was recently back in Ethiopia and she took a camera of ours with her. So let's find out more about her work there.
Here you see me in a meeting with representatives from a number of travel organizations in Addis Ababa. We are attempting to set up structures for sustainable ecotourism in Ethiopia. Here, now you see me, I'm on my way to one of my partners. You know, Ecopia, we work with around 11,000 farmers in different parts of the country. I'm often traveling a long way to visit them. This farm is near Gambela. It is a part of planned cross-border biosphere reserve. Here we are experimenting to find the best way to extract shea butter from the shea nuts. The nuts are dried and cooked, and the shea butter can be used in a variety of products, like chocolate, for example. This is the store where there are plenty of shea butter chocolate products. The marketing of shea butter for the cosmetic industry is one of our biggest projects at the moment. Here I am with my assistants in my open-air office that I set up wherever I go. This way we can take care of the administration part of the company as well as being close to the farmers. We have to keep files and everything. We need to fulfill the 21st century's requirement and the atmosphere and technical situation of the 16th century. This is a weaving cooperative of sellers, which produce a wide variety of traditional Ethiopian fabrics. Here I'm faced with the difficult tasks of deciding which colors would be best with the scarf. This woman produced wonderful, colorful baskets. We are planning to set up an online shop that will market traditional Ethiopian products like this to customers all over the world.
And we haven't got the basket, but is this the scarf that appeared in the film?
This is the scarf. I mean, there is the selam. This lady, she's also like us, a diaspora who went back to Ethiopia and helps with my farmers also, because we share some common farmers together, whereby she makes her weaving and put it in the market, which is a beautiful product.
Yeah. I said earlier 1,100 farmers, you then said 11,000.
Yeah, it's 11,000
We see in the film there your office, which is in a garden or wherever you go, you set up an office, and it looks completely, to North European eyes, most probably completely chaos, but it can't be.
It is not.
No.
It is not, because there is, normally when you see me or you see me working like this, you think I'm a chaotic person, but I'm a very, very highly organized. That's why I say I'm a very good German, but I'm emotionally and rationally organized. So I care. I mean, I work in the countryside, so you cannot have a building where you have offices, internet, or this and that. So you go to the countryside with my car. We have a car, big one, office, and then you open your files and you sit down. But you have an indexation. You have seen there is a German girl beside me. She knows all the indexation. You have it in your mind because it's everything structured. Whether it's traceability code, there are 7 traceability codes. When you see a file, you know where it belongs. Is it administration? Is that legal? Is it this? But when you see it there, it is chaotic for you, because in Germany or in Europe, you are used, organization has to be organized. You need an organizer to organize you. But with me, is that I organize the world. I don't need organized place. I don't need clean places to organize. You just clean it. You just clean it. And it's like, I have a tent with my kids when we travel. We have a tent. You need a laptop, you need the internet connection, and you have your mobile. This is what you need. I mean, when I come to Ethiopia, what I need is my mobile, my car, my laptop, and my system. And then you go to any countryside and you do it.
But do you come across to Germans, perhaps, as being disorganized?
Yeah, Germans in generally are emotionally, from my experience, I can talk only about my experience, are emotionally disorganized. That's why they need...
Emotionally disorganized?
Yeah, emotionally they are disorganized, but in the rational thing, they are organized, hierarchical, linear system. If you come in in an emotional difficult situation, they will tell you, wir müssen sachlich, which means that we have to talk about the topic. And the topic takes out from other emotional linked situation. But me, I'm asymmetric. I don't think of one way. I have a thought, and the thoughts, they disperse like an organic system. And then they are interrelated. So if you touch one thing, I can tell you, yes, but you know that. And that's the only way I created the company. My company is a bridge between 16th century to 21st century. And you can only create a bridge in 16th to 21st century if you are asymmetric. Because as asymmetric, you can think of all the tiny issues which are interrelated domino effects. If you have that, organize it emotionally, and then you can organize it rationally. Then whether the paper is there or not, you know where the place of it is. And you can visualize it easily. But in the German system is that first the visualization has to be there, the file has to be there for you to deal. But me, I have that instrument. I am a best German, I told you. So I know there is a system, and I use that system to organize my pleasure, to organize my life, to organize everything.
Yeah. I could do with a bit of that.
Yes.
I could do with this asymmetrics, yes. We've just got a minute left, so I just want to ask you about your favourite German word. It's nice to end on this. You put Geborgenheit and Gemütlichkeit, which is, again, this whole subject. Geborgenheit means safety, security, comfort. Gemütlichkeit is also untranslatable almost. It's this comfort, it's coziness, isn't it?
Yes, the romanticism of the Germans. You know, Germans are very romantic. They are very loving. They only miss it because they miss the kick, because they try to organize the romanticism. It needs a flow. The harmony is not in color, one color. They love to make it white, blue, but the harmony is between the colors, between the flow. And that is, that's why that's why Germans need foreigners like me who are Germans to make it beautiful. And that's why I love Germans, because they give me what I need, the instrument, and I give them the love and the move of the things.
That's a wonderful way to end. The Germans are romantic.
Yeah.
Mitslal Kifleyesus Matschie, it's been wonderful
to
talk to you today. If you'd like to write into us, please do to insight@dw.de. Write to us. You can write and pose a question to my guest or to me, or just make a comment. Please do. We'd love to hear from you. We always do. And join me again at the same time next week when I have another fascinating guest on Inside Germany. From myself and all the crew here in Berlin, thanks for watching and bye-bye.